5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
you had your first child, Dominic, and everything was pretty much normal with the process until about 2 years in. You noticed that he was having progression problems, progressing in his different attributes as far as crawling and communications and things. And that's when you decided to seek out early intervention program, which I wasn't aware of. So it's a very good program to be aware of. And I do now know that they have a website, and that's for children who are having progression problems. You were able to get help from them. But so when you got that help, you still weren't aware when you got the help that you had Dup15 and Q, and obviously had never heard of Dup15q, I would understand.
Correct.
As most of us have not.
Right.
So as the progress went along and he didn't really progress, you went on and found out he had it through a process of talking to doctors.
Genetic testing.
Genetic testing. So who suggested that you get the genetic testing?
His physical therapist through early intervention, Laurie McGee. She's with Milestone Physical Therapy in Hickson. She had been seeing him for about a month when she said, you know, I think we're just kind of treating the symptoms here. You know, maybe there's something underlying going on. And she suggested that we talk with our pediatrician about seeking genetic testing.
Well, that's pretty interesting that she would see that quickly.
Right, and we owe our early diagnosis to her for sure.
This is just, she noticed it wasn't working what she was doing.
She just said she thought that he should be making a lot more progress than he was making, and based on the fact that he wasn't making progress, or that it was very little, she thought that there might be something that we're missing, and rather than, you know, just ignoring it and finding out, you know, 2-3 years down the road, hey, you know, we missed something way back then and we could have been treating it or getting help, you know, specifically for that the whole time, she recommended that we go ahead and get some genetic testing done just to rule anything out.
And obviously you did that and you got the results back. And what was the impact when you got the results back?
Honestly, you know, you were talking about our faith. I feel like, of course, the Lord, He knew how everything was going to play out. But I feel like it played out in such a way to not overwhelm us, if that makes sense. We went just a few days after his second birthday and it's just a simple blood draw at Vanderbilt. And all in all, it took about 2 months for us to get the results back. So we didn't get the results until about September. But along the way, they would call us because they had done several different tests. And they would say, well, this one came back fine, or this one came back and there's something going on, but we don't really know what it is. So we're still waiting on some more results. So I feel like kind of getting the information little by little over a process of time kind of allowed us to process it better, instead of just getting a phone call one day and saying, hey, your son has this rare genetic disorder and we don't know very much about it at all. You know, kind of hitting you like a ton of bricks. I felt like we were able to take it in little steps at a time, which made it a little bit easier, I guess, to when we finally did get the diagnosis.
Yeah. And when you got it, obviously, it's kind of you go, what?
Yeah.
What is this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was, I think, part of it too, when we found out, and they were not able to really give us a lot of information on it, and there was just a lot of unknowns. Of course, you know, our questions right in the beginning were, you know, okay, well, what does the future look like? You know, what is he? You know, what's going to happen when he gets older, and so on and so forth. And they couldn't give us any of those answers, and so there was a fear with that of the unknown, but at the same time there was a hope, you know,
right?
Where it was not like you know, they were able to tell us everything, and we saw this, you know, really rough road ahead of us and didn't know how we were going to get through it, you know. And I think definitely, at least for me in the beginning, there was that hope of, you know, well, you know, maybe he'll, you know, keep getting better and he'll start, you know, he's just real far behind and he'll slowly start to pick things up and eventually he'll catch up, you know. Of course, we found out later that that was not the case, but I think early on that was a hope that, you know, at least me personally, you know, I was able to kind of look at, and that helped it not be so difficult in the beginning. But then as, time went on and we found out that, it's not something that, of course, that he would grow out of, or that he
would get better.
Would get better. It was not, devastating just because of the fact that we had been started going through the process and just learning that learning to appreciate the small things. That's one thing that's been a big help to us, is the small milestones and the little things, learning to really appreciate those things. It's a lot different now with, with 2 other kids, and, seeing the complete difference, where they are at this age and where he was, when he was their age, and just all the things that, he was not doing then. And like I said, just those little things that we made such a big deal about with him, and now with them, it's just those things are, commonplace. But that's helped us, really deal with it and cope with it, is, looking for those small milestones and trying to enjoy every minute and every moment. So.
And definitely focusing on the victories or the small accomplishments, from day to day.
Yeah. Tell us about when you decided to have 2 more children, or to have another child.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not 2 more.
Yeah.
When you decided to have another child, what went through your head at that time? Did they disqualify the fact that you would have?
Well, they told us when we found out his diagnosis, they told us there was 2 possible ways for him to have come out with that. It was either for one of us to be a carrier of that, and or just, what are the odds?
Happened by fluke.
Yeah,
less than 1%
just a fluke
chance.
thing,
De novo, which they call it just de novo.
Okay.
Which means it just happened.
And so
Like a mutation.
And so for them to have all the symptoms that come with Dup15, it has to come from the maternal side. So they said, they could test Tiffany and see if she was a carrier, and if she was, then there was a 50% chance that any kids that we would have thereafter would have Dup15q. And so right away, that didn't really rule out completely that, we didn't sit there and decide, okay, well, we're not going to do it. We're just going to cut it out there because we're not going to risk it. And then, of course, just financial things came into it when we found out how much his genetic test was.
Oh,
But Vanderbilt was nothing but good to us. We really,
and
really
they were very interested because it was such a rare thing. They asked us about following up with them so they could kind of do some research with him and maybe publishing some articles, with his medical information in it. And they actually, which was a real blessing, we were really excited about, because we had been talking about whether or not to have her tested, and we talked about it, and we said, with Vanderbilt being so interested in all, in all this stuff, maybe they would be willing to test you for free, and so she talked to them, and they said they would do it, and so they decided to do her testing for free
of charge.
Wow.
And so we had that done, and then we actually found out that she was pregnant again before we had the results back.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't really
That
planned
was the
out.
longest that was like the longest time in my life, waiting for those results.
It wasn't really,
bad.
it wasn't planned out, and so, but we found out, and we didn't have the results back yet.
That was a rough period.
Interestingly, I think you told me that this is a maternal carrier, right? So, or is that true?
Yes, his is. If it was passed from the paternal chromosome, it more than likely doesn't show symptoms, doesn't cause problems. So you could have Dup15q if your dad passed it down, and nobody would probably ever know it. But if you had Dup15q passed down from your mom, that's when you see the problems, the symptoms.
That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Today, here we are, just had a birthday, and still progressing, and fixed to go into his 3rd year of preschool, and a lot of adjustment over the years, and now with the two young ones. So, how is it now compared to 2 or 3 years ago? How are you guys coping, and have you adjusted quite a bit to the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think now it's easier than it was back then just because of his progression. I mean, back at the beginning, you know, we weren't able to communicate. He wasn't talking. He wasn't walking at the time. You know, you just had all these unknowns. Will I ever be able to have a conversation with him? Will he ever be able to tell me what's wrong? That's really hard when you can't communicate with your child, when they can't tell you what's wrong or can't tell you what they need. So I feel like it's easier now just because he's progressed so much. And he's, of course, not where his peers are, and he probably never will be, but he's always hit milestones and he's always progressed. It just takes him a lot longer.